Oliver and Company was released in 1988 and is the 27th Disney animated feature film. It was directed by George Scribner and based on the Charles Dickens novel Oliver Twist. The film follows a lost kitten named Oliver who joins a gang of dogs engaged in petty larceny in New York City. I am excited to finally get to this film because it marks the end of the transitional era for Disney, or as many like to call this era, the Dark Age. However, as I have reviewed these films, I feel as if that is kind of not the best way to describe this era in particular. I can see that this era was kind of directionless for a little bit. What do you do after the head of the company dies? And we see throughout this entire era that they scrambled with many different ideas. Some worked, some didn't, and they were just trying to keep this company afloat. And though we have instances such as the Black Cauldron, which really did a number on the studio as a whole, we do see some light at the end of the tunnel, especially with the rise of Jeffrey Katzenberg coming into the studio and kick-starting the Disney Renaissance, which came right after both The Great Mouse Detective and this film, because The Little Mermaid was in production at this point, and it was just a year away. But in that time, we had this film, which, when it was released, did very well at the box office, but not so well critically. Many found it kind of bland and safe, and not really, there wasn't any twists or turns to it to make this something more than what it was on the surface. However, the film has gotten a reputation for being a bit of a underrated classic for those that watched it when they were young. And I know quite a few people that grew up with this film and have shared their love for it. And I was not one of those people. I didn't watch this film until only a few years ago, and I think I had seen maybe clips of it throughout, its run on, say, like Disney Channel or Disney XD or Toon Disney as it was once called. However, I knew about this film and I was excited to watch it when I originally saw it. And as I have watched it through the years, I really enjoy this film quite a bit. And I think that it stands as a pretty solid adaptation of the Charles Dickens work, because at the end of the day, it is a modern retelling of Oliver Twist, except with animals. And I think that's really cool, because Disney just seems to love doing animal films, and they do it pretty well, honestly. And here we see Oliver and Company not just embracing the Charles Dickens story, but embracing New York City as a whole. And I think that is absolutely lovely. I love the images that they have on display in this film, just showing the life of New York City. You see everything from a dog's point of view. You see the towering skyscrapers. You see the dingy streets. You see how busy it is, and it feels so large and grand. And also, it shows a pre-9/11 New York City in all of its glory, and it's really, really good to see this, because especially after the events of 9/11, seeing New York in a whole different way at that point, this is kind of just taking a moment to go back in time and see how it was then. And I think it's a nice time capsule of a film in that way. I also just find this film fun. I really like the characters. Dodger is fantastic, played wonderfully actually by Billy Joel, who lends his voice to this film and is wonderful. In fact, Dodger and Billy Joel as well have the best song in the film, Why Should I Worry, which is so iconic and perhaps one of the greatest Disney songs, period. I love it. It's very catchy and just fun to listen to. In fact, all the songs are really good in this film and very catchy, and they get stuck in your head, and that is proof of a good song in my opinion. I also just really like the animation in this film. It still has the scratchiness of the Xerox processing. They hadn't fully gone back to the animation that would be prevalent in The Little Mermaid, but it's still wonderful here with bright colors that really pop off of the screen, and there's some darkness as well throughout. The film has one of the darkest Disney deaths that I think I've ever seen, with a climax that is very thrilling. It's also just got a lot of heart to it that makes it so engaging and worthwhile to watch. Oliver and Company has moments of levity, it has humor, it has heart, and it has some darkness in it with some seedier characters, such as Sykes, who is done completely different in this film, and though is still dark and villainous, doesn't hold a candle to what that actual character represented in the original story. But to continue on with things such as the voice cast, everybody lends very well to these voices. Cheech Marin is in the film, and he is absolutely hilarious, even though playing a little bit of a stereotype. Still fantastic. Don DeLuise, it's really great to see him as Fagin. He really embodies that character that's kind of sleazy and also just kind of pitiful in the same way. He plays a homeless man that you can't help but love in the end. And that is something I really like with all the characters. They are pretty flawed. They are not like the best animals in the world, but they are likable and you see their point of view. And Oliver, throughout this journey, gets to really see the life of New York City in this way. You see the poor parts of it, and then you see the higher class side of it, which is really, I really like that stuff. However, I think that Oliver himself, the main character of this film, kind of falls through the cracks at points because he's not a very dynamic character and he doesn't really move the plot along all that much. He is likable, he is incredibly cute, but it's really the other characters that drive this story to its conclusion. And it's overall just a really big blast of a film. I had so much fun watching this film. It has a lot of heart to it. I love the music. I really enjoy the characters. And the setting of New York City is gorgeous to behold. It isn't a perfect film. It can be kind of bland at times, but I see why this film has gotten more recognition as the years have gone on, because I think it is worth seeing. I think it has a lot to offer young kids, and I think it's a solid adaptation of Oliver Twist in the end as well. There's really not much else I can say about Oliver and Company. It's a pretty straightforward, simple film, but does have a lot of things to engage with and talk about. And I think that is why it is definitely worth your time. This is a really good film, I think, to end this era of Disney on before they move into the Renaissance. It's really good. I definitely recommend it, and you should check it out. So anyway, guys, with all of that said, I'm going to give Oliver and Company a 7 out of 10. This is one of my favorites of this era. It's not perfect in any way, but it is a fun time nonetheless. But Anyway, that is all I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I cannot wait to finally get to the Disney Renaissance, and in particular, The Little Mermaid, because that is a film that I absolutely adore, and I cannot wait to finally talk about it. But as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.